Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this morning for our last webinar of 2022, which is the ArcGIS Online 2022 Advent Calendar. So today, since it's the 14th of December, we've got 14 Advent Calendar doors for us to walk through, with each hiding a kind of a tip or maybe a tool or feature, for example, in ArcGIS Online that we think is worth shouting about. So hopefully at the end of this session, you might walk away having learned some great tips, tricks, and features for making the most out of ArcGIS Online. So as always, just to cover the housekeeping side of things, the webinar is going to be recorded. So we're going to send a link to this in the follow-up email after the webinar, where you'll also find we've collated a list of helpful resources. So 14 doors, we've got 14 different topics that we're going to go through. So we've got some really handy resources if you want to go ahead and learn a little bit more about some of those topics we might be showing. And then, as I mentioned, as you guys were coming in, we have got a Q&A session at the end, and it is going to be on Slido. So you can either go ahead and scan the QR code with your camera on your phone, or you can head to slido.com, and then you want to enter the passcode, which is ESRI1412. So today you're going to be hearing from two presenters. There's myself, Claudia. I'm a junior customer success consultant here at Esri UK, and I'm joined by my colleague and also fellow customer success consultant, Eve Selby. And with that, welcome to our online Advent calendar, where I'm actually going to pass straight over to Eve to introduce door number 1. Over to you, Eve.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping you'll all be able to see my screen, but one of the first things that we're going to be showing in door number 1 is the Vector Tile Style Editor. This is one of my favorite tools to use because it is a way to create a custom base map within minutes. So as you can see on the screen before us, we have quite a few different base maps to choose from. And for our purposes, we're going to be going into the light gray canvas base map, as it already has minimized labels. And one thing I want to do with this base map is to ensure that it is simple to use. Over on the left-hand side, you can see we have our quick edit area. And with that, you're able to go in and easily adjust the land, water, roads, and so on. So one thing that we'll do is immediately change our hex code for the land so that we can start to create this Winter Wonderland base map to match the rest of the branding that we have for this webinar. Another way to quickly change colors is just by selecting the area of interest on the map. So if I click on the ocean and I know my ocean hex code, then I am able to easily insert that as well. And as you can see, in less than 60 seconds, we've been able to create an almost complete base map to match the Winter Wonderland vibes that we're going for. But if you do have a little bit more time, instead of using the quick edit feature, if you go into edit layer styles, you can see that you can really dig deep into the symbology and the way that you want to expand your cartographic freedom by going really deep into the various layers. Now that we have a custom base map, if we look behind door number 2, we can start adding some data to what we already have. As you can see on the screen in front of us, we have a variety of data already added, including our national park polygons. But if you have data that you're interested in adding into your map, it is now easier than ever. With the new update to Map Viewer, you can now add a layer directly from URL or add a layer from a file. However, if you know that you want to add data, but you don't necessarily have it yourself, you can go into My Living Atlas and utilize a variety of data at your fingertips. This has global geographic content. This includes demographic data, and it includes base maps. But in our case, we are going to be looking for some precipitation data. That way, we can start to investigate the relationship between precipitation and our national parks. One thing that is great about the Living Atlas as well is that this data collection is consistently updated and constantly growing. So within the past year, we've had over 250 new data sets added. If you're interested in having your own data added to the Living Atlas, please feel free to let us know, and you can email the data or the content team at datacurator@esrauk.com, and that is something that I will put into the chat momentarily. But once we've found the data that we want to add, it can be quickly added to the map, and we can move on from there. So back to the Advent calendar and moving on to door number 3. Now that we have our base map and our data ready to go, let's see how we can utilize effects to make our data even more vibrant. If we start with our base map, one thing that I really enjoy about effects on a base map is that it is a quick way, if you don't have time to go into the vector tile style editor, to adjust your base map to more easily see the data itself. So in this case, as much as I love the turquoise that we have on our base map, I think it would be a little easier to focus in on the data if we toned it down a bit. So with that, we can use one of our effects by quickly clicking the toggle button and half our saturation rate down to 50. This way, we're still able to keep our fun branding that we have while being able to focus more on the data itself. And now if we go into our monthly precipitation layer, in this case, we're focusing on December, we are able to use effects to be feature specific. This is a great way to increase your flexibility and customization. And in our case, we want to look at specific extremes. So one thing that feature specific effects is useful for is if you create a specific expression, you can highlight or emphasize certain aspects of the data while muting others. In our expression, we are using the December median precipitation, and we are looking exclusively into whether or not that data is going to be greater than the average of 5.4. By using one of the suggestions for the light base maps, we have the drop shadow and gray function, which emphasizes these areas of dark blue higher precipitation and mutes out these other white areas into the background where the precipitation for December is lower. Now that we have a base map and data that's easier to read, if we go back into the Advent calendar, we can play around with some symbology. One of the symbology functions that I really enjoy, especially for polygons when you're trying to differentiate different areas of use, is using a hatch fill. In this case, I've already created a hatch fill, which matches our Christmassy theme. However, with hatch fills, thanks to the new update, we are able to customize these fills even further. So not only are you able to play around with transparency or width, but if you go into the pattern, you can now also change rotation, separation, and offset. As much as I do love these Christmassy hatch fills, and they are a great way to distinguish between areas of interest, another symbology that I find really interesting is being able to use the different vector fills, in this case, a landscape fill, as it's a little bit more representative of the national parks that we're trying to show on a map. And finally, before we leave this map and move on to some of the other fun things that we have in store behind the other doors, I wanted to highlight Arcade. Arcade is a scripting service within the ArcGIS system, which is native to the ArcGIS platform, and it is a phenomenal tool to be able to do on-the-fly calculations, relate layers, as well as customize pop-ups. So if we click on the map and we look at the default pop-up given for precipitation data, you can see it's displaying all of the attributes. And while this can be a useful way to get a glimpse as to all of the data that we have, by using the pop-up display, you're able to curate the data a little bit more. But if you want to take it one step further, this is where Arcade comes in. So if we click on Attribute Expressions, we can go into the Arcade editor, and I can talk you through how Arcade is used to create some really fun pop-ups. The first thing you'll need to do is define your variables, and so you can pull in data quickly from the feature layer itself, which is the forest polygon, but you can also pull in data from other layers on your map. So in this case, we're bringing in that precipitation data. This also means that if you have other Living Atlas layers you'd like to bring in, it's easy to do so. Arcade is also useful for using functions which will spatially relate layers. So in this case, we are only wanting to focus on the precipitation data that is within our forest polygons, and that's what the intersect function will do. After that, we can utilize the on-the-fly calculations to be able to take the average data of the precipitation within those forests, and we're going to be looking exclusively at the median throughout December. And then just to make it a nice and tidy number, we're going to return it using the ceiling function. So instead of having trailing decimals, we're just going to have an integer. And just to make sure that works, we can use the run function, and a number will appear below. Some of the things, thanks to the November update, have made Arcade even easier to use and more approachable, in part due to the new technical support aspects or troubleshooting features. So let's say that you misspell a variable because you're just scripting so quickly. You can now have red flagging errors that will occur off to the right-hand side. And if you hover over the text itself, the squiggly lines will show you or give you additional context for that error. In addition, we also have IntelliSense technology. So let's say that you're typing in a function that you want to use. If you select that function, it will then not only input it for you automatically, but it will let you know which features or other things you will need to bring into the scripting window. And with that, we are able to create some really fun pop-ups. So if we move on from the default, which I showed you earlier, you now end up with a pop-up that looks like this. It creates a really easy to read, visually appealing pop-up where it gives you information, including calculations, within the span of a sentence. We were also able to maintain that custom branding that we had earlier by having it create a sentence that tells you whether or not to get prepared for the weather, depending on how much precipitation is within that polygon. Now that we've highlighted how to create a base map, talked about authoritative content, gone through effects, symbology, and Arcade, before I pass it off to Claudia, I want to go into the administrative side of things as well. And so that will take us to door number 6. When it comes to administrative workflows, the November update has made it a lot easier for organizations. One way that this has been done is through having member hierarchy or organizational hierarchies. So now we have a hierarchical structure that you can sort members by, including by department or location. This allows you to be able to filter for members quickly if you want to assign someone a task. If you want a bit more creative freedom when it comes to designing your homepage, administrators now have more flexibility when it comes to cover image layout, and you can adjust the height of the image. And then when it comes to being able to manage depreciated data or manage data in general, items report now has a date of last viewed. Keep in mind, with this feature, you can't time travel, so anything pre the November 9th update will not have been shown as before November 9th. This is not the only limits, or these are not the only things that have been covered within that update. Other things that you can do when it comes to data management also includes being able to manage custom base map galleries, and there are now improvements in inviting new members. With all of these exciting changes, we will now pass it back to Claudia to talk a little bit more about what is behind door number 7.
Let me just minimize that. Okay, so we're going to move on to door number 7 now, which is indoor GIS. Now, for quite some time, we've been providing you with the products, the tools to be able to map your data in outdoor environments. But our indoor mapping capabilities have been massively growing as well. So this means you can map your indoor floor plans, your spaces, your assets, all using ArcGIS. So whether you do want to actually visualize a building's floor plan, or maybe have an accurate model of your building in 3D that you can navigate between the floors with, all of that is now possible. So Map Viewer now supports indoor data out of the box without actually purchasing an ArcGIS Indoors license, meaning that you can map floor plans that are floor aware as well, all in the Map Viewer, as you can see here. Or I could even then take something like this and I could then add it into an application such as ArcGIS dashboards to then be able to actually manage my indoor spaces and monitor things going on in these indoor spaces as well. And as long as you do have data that holds that kind of that floor level attribute, then you can essentially do indoor GIS now at no additional cost. And then if you are wanting to kind of explore those more advanced indoor mapping capabilities, then you might be after ArcGIS Indoors, which, such as this Indoors application that we've got here, allows you to combine the use of this 2D floor plan, of if this is a university example, where we can actually have a look at the floor plan. We can navigate between the floors, see the different room types, so they're symbolized by color, as well as the assets across all of these floors. But then if I want to, I could also then switch to a 3D view in the same application, and then I can actually see this 3D model of my building as well and have that more realistic view of this building. And I could even, if I wanted to, add an entire campus here, such as you can see, we've just got the one building here, but I could add an entire campus and have my entire campus in 3D if I wanted to, and to be able to navigate between the floors as well. So just go back to the Advent calendar. And we're now going to move to door number 8, which is geofencing. So this is specifically in ArcGIS field maps. And yes, I know the title of this webinar is about ArcGIS Online, and field maps, as the name implies, is a field application. But online is a configuration portal for all of these field apps. And to be honest, I think geofencing is a brilliant capability, so I couldn't resist adding it in as well. But for those who don't know, geofencing is simply the process of actually detecting when a user is entering a target area, for example. So this capability was brought to ArcGIS Field Maps in the June update. And it consists of 2 core geofencing capabilities. So on the left-hand side, we've got location-based alerts, which is where as soon as a user enters the target area, or in this case, you can see on screen the orange polygon, then it's automatically going to send a configured alert. Again, in this case, it's alerting them that they're entering building site F, which requires a hard hat, which you can see across the notification across the top of the screen there. The second capability is control location sharing, which, as the name suggests, you can control when the user is actually sharing their location. So in this case, you can see when the user enters the blue polygon, which is in this case a high risk zone, then their location will be shared. And both of these examples we've got here, they're really for mobile worker safety, but it could be used for anything such as maybe responding to events, monitoring worker activity as well. And another reason I wanted to include this in the webinar is to actually be able to show how easy it can be to configure a geofence in field maps. So here we are in the field maps web configurator, so we are back in online. And as I said, I wanted to show you just how easy it is to set up a geofence. So we've got the panel along the left-hand side, which those who use field maps will be familiar with. But we've also now got the geofence tab as well, which I've already got open. So we can see we've already set up the location sharing geofence for when the user is in a high risk area. But let's go ahead and add the location-based alert for when they're entering a building site. So it's really straightforward. We can just simply add geofence along the bottom. It then opens up the configuration pane on the right-hand side. So firstly, we just need to name our geofence. So let's go for building site alerts. Then we need to select the layer that we're actually adding this geofence to. So again, I can just select my building site polygon layer, which it then zooms to for us. I can also actually add a buffer to this polygon. So if I set it, for example, at 50 meters, it's then automatically drawing that buffer for me around the polygon. So even as soon as my user enters the buffer of this polygon, it's then going to send this alert that we're setting up. All that's left to do then is actually set the action type. So we've got the two to choose from that I've just shown. We've got location alert and location sharing. So I'm going to stick with location alert. And then we just need to actually add the message that we want to appear to the user. So just like in the example I showed in the previous slide, I could add that you're entering, and then we want the name of the building site. So I can actually use the add field button just on the right hand side here, and I can insert name. So if we've got multiple building sites, multiple polygons within this layer, it's always going to input the name of that particular building site. And then if I want to, I can add that the hard hat is required. And we can even do this for on exit as well if we wanted to. So if I check that box, we get another message. I could even just copy this and just change it. So we're exiting, and that a hard hat is no longer required. And I mean, that is literally it. I then just can click save. And then the mobile worker can then open this map on their device, and they'll see those geofences pop up. A couple things to remember here, though, is that you do require an ArcGIS location sharing license to harness these geofencing capabilities. And as well, the mobile worker will always have to authorize whether they're happy to share their location and whether they're happy to receive notifications as well on their device. So both of those will pop up when they're in the field maps app, and then when they open that map with these geofences enabled. So they'll always have that option to authorize those. Now going back again to the Advent calendar, we're moving on to door number 9, which is all about apps. So we really wanted to just actually use this as an opportunity to remind you of the huge variety of apps we have available for you to create really whatever you want to, and making sure you're best displaying the data you've got. So whether it's a story map, a time-enabled app, a dashboard, a simple, really intuitive map display, there's just such a great variety. And in terms of their configuration as well, maybe you want a really simple one, such as ArcGIS Instant Apps, which, as the name suggests, again, it's instant. Or you might want to go all the way through to something that gives you full artistic license with pretty much zero restrictions, like ArcGIS Experience Builder. So you really can just create any type of app that best suits you. Jumping along to door number 10, which is similarly linked to the previous, and that's because it's all about the non-map centric apps. So quite a lot of us probably might look at maps every single day, but they don't need to be at the center of all of our applications. And a brilliant example of this is Report Builder for ArcGIS, which is one of our products that allows you to create reports. So whether it's a simple one-page fact sheet, all the way through to kind of creating a complex multi-page area profile. And there's a range of widgets to choose from as well to best display your data. Or you could even make use of one of the templates that are available to help get you started as well. And hopefully in these examples that I'm showing you, for example, this one's the East Riding fact sheet, you can see just how compelling these reports are, how engaging and informative they are, showing all of your data in this way, and grabbing your spatial data in ArcGIS, but not always showing them through maps like we might normally would. Okay, so we're now going along to the bottom row, and we're moving on to door number 11, which is all about ArcGIS Hub. Now, ArcGIS Hub is a easy to configure community engagement platform. And the reason why we've included it in our advent calendar is because we really wanted to highlight that it's a brilliant way to create a shop window, if you like, for your organization's shared data resources. So we've got a couple of examples here of exactly that, such as we've got RSPB's open data portal, which here is just really nicely displaying the varying different data sets that they've got available, all in this nice scrolling page platform. We've also then got the sustainable development goals that again, they've also categorized it along the bottom here by the 17 different goals, with each of these behind having various different data sets within them, which so hopefully you can see in these two examples that the power of ArcGIS Hub and its suitability for actually making these shop windows for your organization and your organization's shared data. Moving along, we're going to go on to door number 12 now, which is all about Power Automate. Now, Power Automate is a tool for automating repetitive tasks to improve the efficiency within an organization. And ArcGIS for Power Automate is a capability that provides you with a number of different connectors for using ArcGIS as both a trigger or an action within these workflows. So it could be used to enrich your location data, it could be used to create new features, or even to get data from ArcGIS. And just to give you a bit of a flavor of Power Automate, we've got an example here on screen that it's using the ArcGIS Survey 123 connector. And this is for the use case of building knowledge of a supply chain. So ArcGIS Survey 123 itself is used to gather all of the information from the supplier, but also then take advantage of the Power Automate connector to link survey responses together. So we can actually import dynamic content from previous survey responses to build a custom URL. So essentially, when a supplier details a sub-supplier, it can then automatically send an email to that sub-supplier with a link to that form. So essentially, we're building that supply chain all through these automated processes. And this is just one example using to build supply chains, but hopefully it kind of gives you an idea of the automated processes that are available with ArcGIS for Power Automate. Okay, so we're starting to approach the end now, and we're moving on to door number 13, which possibly my favorite door, and that's because it's taking a look at the world in 3D. So 3D means we're going into Scene Viewer in ArcGIS Online. And with our 3D capabilities, they're really continuing to grow and they're becoming more and more easy to use as well. So we're going to here we're going to start adding some data to our scene. So firstly, I've already got a couple up here. So we're going to add the OpenStreetMap 3D buildings, which is a layer new to ArcGIS Living Atlas of the World this year, which provides really, really great coverage of 3D buildings in Edinburgh. We can also add the 3D trees layer as well, so we can add that into our scene. And if I just move around, we can see quite a few of them come up over here. There we go. And for those who maybe you're local to Edinburgh, you know it quite well, but it is December, so there is one tree missing from our 3D scene here. And that is the Edinburgh Christmas tree that's on the mound, which you can see we've just popped up here. Now, with these 3D layers readily available, it's really, really easy, as you can see, to build your own 3D scene to display your data and kind of get a 3D realistic view of where you're looking at, or in Edinburgh in this case. But there's also a number of great analysis tools in Scene Viewer to make use of as well, such as we've got the line of sight, which we've already carried out some line of sight, so I can go ahead and add that in, where we're taking a look at exactly where you can see the Edinburgh Christmas tree from. Another analysis tool that we've got is the dimensions tool. So if I just go to along the left-hand side, the Add Layers tab, you can see this is where we've got the line of sight. So that's what we've just done. And we've also got the dimensions. So I'll just click on dimensions and I'll zoom into our Christmas tree. And I can literally just click on a feature and then keep dragging it. And there we go, it's automatically capturing the dimensions of the feature that I'm taking a look at. And you can play around with these. I can pull it out to make it more obvious outside of the Christmas tree. Or I could even go ahead and I can actually start, maybe I want to have an annotation that's yellow so we can see it standing out. I could also change the color of the label if I want to, or even the size. And something that's really great, I think, about these analysis tools is that, as you just saw, you can customize them. But they're also actually, if I go to my layers tab, they're adding as additional layers to your 3D scene. So I could go ahead and actually rename this and start to categorize all of these different dimensions or the line of sight, for example. So you can then pass it to a colleague, for example, or the next user to take a look at, which I think is a really nice feature to be able to do all of this. Okay, so we're in Scene Viewer. It's Christmas, and I think it would be awful if we didn't show off the weather effects. So it's something that I always think is a bit of a crowd pleaser. If we just go over to the right-hand side here, we've got the daylight and weather tab. And I can go ahead and get this looking even more Christmassy. So I think we need to make it snow. And I'm going to go all out because why not? So maximum cloud cover, maximum precipitation. And if I wanted to, I could even go ahead and add snow cover, and it will add snow cover to our trees layer that we've got there, which I think is pretty cool. And then one last thing that I did want to actually quickly mention in Scene Viewer is that on the left-hand side, you can actually now create your own VR 360 experience straight from your scene. So it just uses the slides that you capture in your scene, which is you'll find here. So I can literally go in, I can capture a scene in my scene viewer, capture the scene, and then it's going to take it, create a 360 VR experience from that slide, which is really, really impressive. So with that, let's head back to our Advent calendar, and we're moving on to today's door. So December 14th, behind the 14th day, we've got building experiences. So this is all about ArcGIS Experience Builder, which is one of our web app builder applications, like the well-known ArcGIS web app builder, but it's built on the latest version of the JavaScript API. So that means it's built on the latest technology, meaning you can harness those features such as 3D mapping, whilst also being given incredible flexibility and customization to make an app that is different every time, rather than something that might look like similar templates. You can start with a blank page and create something really unique, making the most of the extent of customization that you can do in Experience Builder. Or you can even start with one of the templates to better get to know Experience Builder first. And even this session today was entirely built on Experience Builder and even presented on Experience Builder as well. So hopefully you appreciate the flexibility and kind of the real customization you can get out of Experience Builder as well. So with that, I'm now going to pass back over to Eve to wrap up and have a sneak peek at door number 15. Over to you, Eve.
Thank you. So on to our last door, which, as you may know, is the door for tomorrow. And so with that, this is a summary page of some of the many interesting things that Claudia and I covered. And we would love it if for you tomorrow or at any point this year, or maybe it's a New Year's resolution for next year to get to learn more about the ArcGIS Online system, to have a play around with some of the things that we talked about. Maybe there's one specific topic that really struck your fancy. Maybe you are now itching to create your own holiday themed base map to integrate into your next online map or digital presentation, whatever it is, we would love for you to experiment with some of the things that we've talked about here today. And with that, we are now going to move on to our Q&A.
Brilliant. So as we mentioned at the start of the session, it is on Slido. So feel free, if you have got any questions, please do send them in to Slido and we'll answer as many as we can. You can go ahead and you can scan the QR code and you'll be asked to enter the passcode, or go ahead to slido.com and hopefully you'll see it there. So we've got a great number of questions come in. So let's take a look at some of these. Okay, so we've got a question about, are there any plans to add flood data in Scotland to the Living Atlas? So there are plans. There are plans to, yes, and we are, I believe, in discussions with them at the moment. They're looking at getting it available in Living Atlas in the future. Timescale wise, it's kind of hard to say exactly when. Hopefully, as we go into the new year, hopefully something will come within the next year. But yeah, it's hard to know an exact timescale on that one. But hopefully, gives you a bit of an idea. What else have we got? We've got, will the geofence capabilities be added into Survey 123 as well? So I'd love it to, yes. I know that Survey 123, it's in the pipeline that they're going to be adding location sharing capabilities. So hopefully that means that it might be something that comes in the pipeline, but I haven't heard anything yet. But as I said, location sharing is coming, so hopefully we might see something in the future. Okay, so what else have we got coming in? We've got more and more coming in. I don't know if Eve, you can see any that you're ready to go with.
Of course, and just as a quick add-on to what Claudia was saying, also very excited about geofencing for Survey 123. And for now, one workaround that we have is that you can limit collection using minimum and maximum coordinate constraints. And so, although it's not necessarily geofencing, it is something that you can do in the meantime. Another question that came in was, do these 3D tools work for scene layers which go below ground level? So when it comes to that, scene viewer can go below ground, though you may need to create a local scene rather than a global one. It's also just important to make sure that you're accounting for whatever Z value you need for something that's below ground. And definitely an interesting use case.
Cool. So what else have we got? We've got, is there a function to allow people to add a comment to a web map placed on a website? So this is a great question. I can't think of a way of doing that directly, but there's ways that you can kind of support feedback. So maybe allowing maybe simple features to be added, or you could even, one way you could do it is you could add a link to a Survey 123 survey, for example, in a pop-up. That could be a good way of doing that one. What else have we got here?
Someone else has asked, what version of Enterprise will all of these updates be available in? And it should be available, or the Enterprise version should be 11.1 for most of the new things that are coming out this year.
Brilliant. Gosh, we've got so many coming in, guys.
Thank you so much for all of the questions.
I know, there's so many, isn't there, all of a sudden? Let's have a look. Does Report Builder allow you to create printable reports? So that's something that I think that would have to be in a separate app. Printing is supported, but I'd say for that one, talk to your CSM. I don't know too much about that one, I'm afraid, but I hope that helps a little bit. What else have we got here?
When it comes to the apps and experiences and whether they use credits, in many cases, like with Map Viewer, any of the effects or additional tools aren't going to require credits. When it comes to adding specific data, if you're going to geocode it, it might. But in some cases, like with indoors, it just may require a specific license if you're not doing something from the ground floor.
Thanks, Eve. God, I've got so many coming in, I can't keep up. What else have we got? Let's have a look.
Another quick one. It says, can you filter out only UK data sets on Living Atlas? One trick that I've done is just by adding the word UK to whatever area of interest that I'm looking for. But if you wanted to look at the data sets that Esri UK has also published, you could look at our account and see what we've inputted in as well.
Brilliant. What else have we got? Are field maps geofencing notifications in-app only or push notifications to the whole device? i.e., if the app is minimized, will it still notify? The answer to that is yes, I believe it will. I think I've done that a few times. I've come out of the device, and as long as you've still got the app open, you've not completely quit, then you'll still get those notifications coming in as well. So hope that answers that one for you. What else have we got? So I understand you need a premium account in Microsoft to use the Power Automate. Is there an additional license from Esri we need to have? This one, I don't believe you need an additional license, but as you said, to get that the kind of premium content, you will need an additional account in Microsoft. But most things you won't need an additional license for now. So that's that one. What else have we got? I think we're answering most of them now, Eve. I don't know if you can see any that we've not answered yet.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, Claudia. I'm also trying to keep up. For accessing Report Builder, did you talk about that being a separate app?
Yes. Yeah. So
okay, brilliant.
I think we've quickly covered that one.
You've beaten me to it.
I can't see any others at the moment. What about, can the user categories be integrated with permission groups? Have we had a look at that one? I don't know if you know anything about that, Eve.
Could you say that one more time, Claudia? Sorry, you cut off a little bit.
Oh, sorry. So can the user categories be integrated with permission groups in organization admin?
And I am not sure to that one at the moment, but what I can do is put in a link for the what's new in November updates, and it will explain in greater detail as to what administrative changes have been brought about recently when it comes to member categories, and I will do that now.
Yeah, so we have in the resources list that we're going to be sending out, there's quite a lot of documentation and different blogs that hopefully is going to clear a lot of any other questions that people might have, or any general interest in some of the topics. But I think we're getting there with these questions. I don't know if Alistair's on the call. He's a senior customer success consultant who might be able to help out with some of these questions as well, while we try to get up to speed with some of these that are coming in. Alistair, are you there?
So I'm happy to try and cover some off. It's always a little bit of a challenge keeping up with the questions as they're coming in live. So one of the questions was about trying to find UK only data sets in the Living Atlas. The Living Atlas itself, if you go to the main page, there's a really good search facility there. It's nice and easy to kind of search for data sets based on region. And if you're trying to draw content in through one of the other interfaces, then sometimes including the kind of name of the area will pick things up. But I'd suggest going to the main, if you're looking for something in particular, go to the main Living Atlas web page and do a browse there, and you can actually choose. There's a country picker there, so you can filter it down to UK content. There's a question about geofencing capabilities coming into Survey 123. So this isn't something that I know about directly, but given that it's just come out in field maps, the different mobile app teams do kind of work across the kind of functionality. So there's a chance that having had it come into field maps, it may come into survey 123. And one of the things that might be kind of linked with that is them working towards including location sharing, the tracking capability in survey 123, which I think is something that is on their roadmap.
I've just seen another question as well asking that it's really nice to see the 3D capabilities, and that is this included in the main license or is it separate? So no, everything I showed you can go ahead and you can do yourself. It's directly in ArcGIS Online. It's in Scene Viewer, all of those layers I showed you, so the 3D buildings, the trees, you'll find that in the Living Atlas. So you can go ahead and you can just add all that yourself and play around with the weather as well. But I think that's all we've got time for, really. We're a minute over. I hope we've answered most of the questions. It looks like I think we're getting there with most of them. But thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we hope you've learned a couple tips and tricks with ArcGIS Online. And look out for the follow-up email with the resources and the recording. So thank you very much.